Okay, so the question was, are DC and DC bar different? And you found a counter example. Okay, so here is an example. Are they different? Yes, of course. I mean, otherwise, why would you formulate a conjecture? Yeah. Example. Let f equal to x. It's a non-trivial example. Yes, it's even the x5, x2 square plus x6, x3 square plus x7, x1, x2 plus x8, x2, x3. Yeah? Then, and it's actually it's a theorem, okay? I mean, it's a non-trivial theorem by Hattenheim and Laris, that the DC bar of f is 3, okay? It can be approximated infinitesimally closely by symbolic determinants of size 3, but DC of f is greater than or equal to 5 at least, but it could be much more than 10 also. Okay?
Yeah. So in the case of matrix multiplication, in the case of matrix multiplication, then there is always a parametric sequence tending to the optimum. Is this also the case here?
Yes. I'll talk about this in the after.
What is it? What is the thing?
Like, you can always get this epsilon. Like you can always have a computation where you allow epsilons, and that is how you.
Yes.
Yeah. So I will talk about.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, there is a curve which drives it to that thing. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. That just comes from the definition. That is just algebraic geometry, standard. Yeah. Okay. So you can see that there is a gap. Now, the important thing to notice is that this has no symmetries. Okay, so whenever there is a huge divergence between DC and DC bar, the symmetries get broken. Okay? Yeah? So now the conjecture in GCT5 is also it is what? It is not characterized by its symmetries. What?
It was not characterized by its symmetries. You say that.
Not characterized by its symmetries. Now, conjecture is that DC of permanent would be O polynomial of DC bar of permanent. So for example, in the case of matrix multiplication, you know that the rank and border rank is closely related. They are asymptotically the same. So the similar thing, and what did you use in that proof? That the matrix multiplication is characterized by its symmetries, okay? I mean, that is really the core of the, I mean, you are using that, whatever the proof is, you are really using the symmetries of matrix multiplication. Now you see that this is characterized by its symmetries. Which is why we expect, as in the case of matrix multiplication, that the two would be polynomially related. I mean, this is much weaker than what is there. In the case of matrix multiplication, it's not just polynomial, but the exponent is actually the same asymptote. We are not saying that the exponent has to be exactly the same, but within a constant factor. But it's a liberal conservative conjecture, and it is actually supported by the matrix multiplication story and also the fact that it's characterized by its symmetries. And you can see this concrete example that whenever there is a blow up, the characterization by the symmetries is lost. And this is a non-trivial example. Yeah. Okay, so now let me try to reformulate. This is not how it was stated in GCT1. It is actually stated in terms of orbit closures, because that is how you bring into picture the geometric invariant theory. So let me state that. The whole point of that, whole point of that conjecture. So this is algebraic geometric, whereas this is not algebraic geometric, in the sense that I would make clear now. So let me rephrase the GCT conjecture in terms of algebraic geometry. And actually you can even phrase it in terms of geometric invariant theory, but we won't need it for today's thing, so I won't. So okay, so you take Y to be m by m variable matrix, and X is its n by n subminor variable matrix, and you fix some entry Z outside of Y outside X. Okay, now let cal Y equal to, I take, so this denotes the ring of polynomials in the entries of Y, okay, of degree m. Okay, so this is the space of homogeneous forms of degree m in the entries of Y. And now let I define the sigma of det m. So I'm denoting this the projective space associated with this. Okay, let this be the set of all points in Py. So in the projective space Y, you can think of each point as denoting a homogeneous polynomial of degree m in the entries of Y, set of all points that correspond to non-zero homogeneous polynomials in Y that can be expressed as symbolic determinants of size m over Y. Okay, yes, so all the polynomials that can be expressed as symbolic determinants of size m over Y.
What is P of Y? What is P of Y?
The projective space, this is a vector space, right? So just is just the set of all lines through the origin in Py. And this just corresponds to the set of all polynomials here that can be expressed as symbolic determinants of size m over the entries of Y. Yeah. And let delta of determinant m, let this be, so you take this set delta m and you take its closure, okay, inside Py. So you can take the closure in the complex topology, or equivalently, this is a basic result of algebraic geometry in the Zariski topology. But if you wish, you can just take complex topology. In the usual complex topology, you take its closure, okay, of this set. So basically, this corresponds to the set of all points in Py that can be approximated infinitesimally closely by symbolic determinants of size m over Y. Okay. So in terms of this, now you can rephrase Valiant's conjecture as follows. So Valiant's conjecture, then they would say Valiant's conjecture say that z to the m minus n times permanent of X. This is an n by n variable matrix. Okay, so I'm padding it with z to the m minus n, so that this whole degree is so that this belongs to, you can think of it as an element of the projective space, because the homogeneous polynomial in Y. Okay, because z is also an entry of Y, and X I'm taking n by n minor of Y, so this is an element of the projective space. So this Valiant's conjecture would say that this does not belong to sigma det m. Okay, if m is greater than 2 to the n to the epsilon, I am taking the stronger form, epsilon a constant. Okay, that is what Valiant's conjecture would say, right? Huh? Oh yeah. It's not good to forget the conjecture, yeah. Yes? And the GCD conjecture would say that this does not belong to delta determinant m. If yes? So what is gained? So you see that this is in algebraic geometry what is called a constructible set. So this is a variety. Okay, so this is because the closure in the complex topology, that's the basic standard result of algebraic geometry, is actually a variety. Okay, whereas this is not a variety. This is a what is called a constructible set, which means that can be obtained from many varieties, can be obtained from varieties using union, intersection and complement operations. Okay, so it can be fairly ugly. So this can be very badly behaved from the algebraic geometry point of view. Now there is a general principle of algebraic geometry which says that if a constructible set is non-trivial, you are not going to prove any reasonable property about the constructible set without proving the same property for its closure, the variety. Okay, which basically means in this case the constructible set is very non-trivial, so you are not going to prove any result about that constructible set without proving the same result about the variety. Okay, which is why this conjecture was introduced. And you can see that even in complexity theory, though the lower bound results even in the restricted models and so forth didn't worry about algebraic geometry and so forth, all the lower bounds, for example the quadratic lower bound for the permanent as determinants, Mignon and Rassard result, the same thing holds even for infinitesimally closed approximation with the same basic idea. Okay, also all the lower bounds in the restricted models for the permanent, such as in depth 3 circuits or whatever, yeah, they also hold for infinitesimally closed approximation. Okay, so though complexity theory did not worry about algebraic geometry, it is following this principle of algebraic geometry that whenever you have a constructible set, you have to close it. Otherwise, you are not going to get anything reasonable out of it. So, because of that, though these conjectures are different, because DC and DC bar are different, this is not expected to be harder to prove than that, because basically any reasonable proof of this is going to give you a proof of this. That is what all the evidence in complexity theory so far suggests. And so, if this is true, then you can assume that this is true, and of course this is true, that is true. Okay, so and if those DC and DC bar of permanent are polynomially related, they would be formally equivalent, but that is a hard thing to prove. But anyway, so and this is basically the underlying thesis of GCT program, that to prove VP versus VNP conjecture, you would basically have to prove this, the hardness hypothesis of geometric complexity theory. So that's why we are going to just focus on that, and this is also supported by all the evidence so far. So now, of course, how difficult this variety is going to matter. Okay, and turns out the first thing is that this variety how difficult is that variety is going to be how difficult your problem is going to be, and that is what I'm going to talk about, the implications of the. So the first thing is theorem due to Kumar says that this variety is not normal. So I won't go into the definition of normal variety, which basically means that its coordinate ring is not integrally closed in its function field. basically it means that the singularities are badly behaved. Okay, and that is already a sign that we are getting into trouble, because if a variety is not normal, which means the standard techniques of algebraic geometry are not going to work in the understanding of this variety. And if you see that all the, so for example, you see, I mean, we are taking, if you think of this as sigma det m, I mean, Blackboard puts limitation on the dimension of the variant. So what you are putting is all the singularities here, okay? That is what GCT program is trying to analyze. You are taking closure. Now you see, even if those singularities are not part of your problem, original problem, they are actually the part of your problem. Because if you want to understand, prove any statement about this, like for example, even for a curve, if you want to understand the shape of this curve, after you remove the singularity, what are you going to study first? How it behaves near the singularity. You see that, so though these singularities at the border, which are not a part of VP versus VNP conjecture, the singularities are going to actually determine, you know, how difficult that set is. And if you want to make a progress, it is those singularities that you have to really analyze, okay? Because, so, and what this thing says that the singularities are not normal, because which means that many sheets basically come there. Okay, so it's a normality. So the extension problem is hard for that variety, and the conjecture, the correspond. So it means that from the algebraic geometric point of view, the variety is not well behaved, and the conjecture in GCT5 is that actually from the complexity theoretic point of view also the variety is not well behaved. Basically, it says that delta determinant M, okay, contains points which do not have small circuits. By small circuits I mean polynomial poly-M size circuits. So though when you're approximating infinitesimally closely, the circuit size is going to blow up. That's a highly counterintuitive. I mean, we already saw here that the circuit size is blowing up. You can approximate it by degree of symbolic determinants of size 3, but the symbolic determinant size is actually blowing up. Okay, and this is going to happen as, I mean, there you can't see the exponential behavior and all that, but as M becomes larger, actually, so formally what it says, formally what you can say is that if I take, so if I forget this VPWS part, okay, so if I take the bar, yes, VP bar, that this is actually not equal to VP. Yes, that the closure of VP and VP are two different things. This is the beginning of all trouble for complexity theory. Okay, and there is a good evidence for this. I won't talk about. So good evidence for this would be provided in some joint work with Groschow and Kiwa. Why? So there is a good evidence for this also. And at least in a small example, you can see that there is a blow up here in 3x3 thing. But it says that so if you define the boundary of VP, okay, boundary of VP, you define it as VP bar complement VP, then what this says is that the boundary is non-empty. And that non-empty boundary is the difficulty of complexity theory, because that is what is going to cause all the trouble. And now, and what is the level of the trouble is going to, that is the main result that I'm going to talk about now. So how much difficulty is it going to, so basically, as long as you want to just prove polynomial lower bounds, like quadratic lower bound for Minian-Rasser, you want to prove cubic lower bound, etc., this boundary is not going to stand in the way. But the moment you try to prove super polynomial lower bound, this boundary is going to stand in the way, because it is going to say something highly non-trivial about the NNL problem for the orbit closure of the determinant. So similarly, in the restricted models, like depth 3 and all that, you could get good bounds for the permanent. Okay, and the same bounds also hold for the infinitesimally closed approach, because in the restricted models, this conjecture is only for the models in which determinant can be computed efficiently. Okay, so for example, in the restricted models also, depth 3 models, you can see that you can prove lower bounds as long as the model, the bounds are not strong enough to go much beyond determinant. Okay, whatever bound you get in depth 3 for permanent is the same bound for determinant. That is already going to tell you that there is a problem. Okay, because why is it not going beyond determinant? Is because once you can compute determinant, this is going to stand in the way. The boundary is going to. So it is, though it may seem to you that you are very close to getting the answer, you are not, because the boundary is going to stand in the way, and that boundary is going to cause all the problems, and which is what now the next result will tell you what is the problem that the boundary causes. So for that, let me now define.
So with this, doesn't that make the polynomial relation between DC and DC bar also tricky?
No, because permanent is characterized by its symmetry. So the thing is that makes showing the superpolynomial lower bound for permanent hard, because you see that when you are adding all these things here, okay, there are all these huge circuits here. You have to separate permanent from that. But you are asking why is permanent not there? Correct?
No, I'm just saying that this is something that says that in general the closure and
Yes.
closure and the orbit is not the same thing.
Not the closure, the orbit, the endo. I'm saying that only for permanent it is, they would be, because permanent is characterized by its symmetry.
No, I just wanted to know the reason to believe that this conjecture is true and this conjecture is true is because permanent is there.
Yes, because whenever there is a blow, as you saw, the things, this characterization by symmetry is lost. Okay, that is the thing. Yeah, because if permanent were not characterized by symmetry, then it would be in big trouble. yeah, okay. Then because permanent is characterized by.
Can you draw in the picture? So because permanent is characterized by its symmetries, then what happens to the picture
Which picture? This picture.
that you're drawing?
My drawing is not very illustrative. So don't don't take it very seriously. I mean,
No, so what happens is
because it is not characterized by its symmetries, all this bad stuff, the permanent is not going to be there.
because it's characterized, then the
Yeah,
permanent.
is not going to be here. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So in general, you expect any polynomial that is characterized by symmetries
Yes.
to have these.
Characterization by symmetry is the crucial thing. Even for the matrix multiplication, you can see that why is the border rank and rank so closely related? Because the matrix multiplication tensor is characterized by its symmetries.
Can you define what is to be characterized by symmetries?
Characterized by symmetries. Okay, so for example, permanent has a symmetric group, like you can permute the things from left, right, and then you have the diagonal action. And permanent is the only polynomial in the entries of x of that degree which has those symmetries up to constant multiple. Okay, so that is the characterization by symmetry. That is the important fact. Yeah.
Like, so this conjecture would mean that any polynomial which is in the boundary cannot be characterized by its symmetries.
Yes. Won't be characterized by symmetries. And even the one non-trivial example, you can see that whenever there is a blow up, the symmetries would be lost, because the blow up actually loses. That blow up corresponds to something called, in algebraic geometry, that blow up actually comes from something in the algebraic geometry called resolution of singularities. There are those blow up operations in the resolution of singular, and in those blow ups the symmetries get lost. I won't go into that. Yeah, but yeah.
Like some sort of a natural proof barrier, because it basically says that there is no nice algebraic proof to separate.
No, there is a proof. I mean, that is what the GCT program
No,
is.
I mean, the lower bound proof, I mean, right now the lower bound basically says that you can define a polynomial such that everything that has a small depth circuit is in the kernel of that polynomial, but the permanent is not.
I don't know. I mean, this is the thing about natural proofs is it's a sufficient condition.
No, I just said natural in some vague sense. I mean, what they say, I mean, lower bounds right now, why they define some polynomial like a rank of a matrix or the determinant of some minor, right?
Yeah.
Such that
No. So that is what the GCT program.
kernel of the polynomial, but permanent or determinant or not.
No. But that is what the GCT program is also going to find out. It's going to find out some equation that is satisfied by the coefficients of the polynomial satisfied by this, which the permanent would not satisfy.
No, but then, if you have a polynomial such that everything in VP is in the kernel, is a zero of that polynomial, then also. Right?
No, there is no problem.
Yeah,
Also
also
would be
VP bar,
zero.
that's fine.
That is fine. It would also satisfy VP bar. Basic.
Okay, you want to show it so in VP bar. Then
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
If permanent is in VP bar.
Oh, then you would be big. And then that's it. Then it's the end of the game.
So then, no, then, right, okay.
Yeah.
But it still shows it's not in VP
No. But of course, but then the algebraic techniques simply won't work. Yeah. And of course, if Vp is equal to Vp bar, that is the end of GCT. Because in fact, why do you need GCT? Because the boundary. Okay. The boundary is the cause of all troubles. And if the boundary is there, you can't avoid it. Okay. And what GCT is really understanding the boundary.
Basically, GCT says there are natural proofs.
Huh?
So GCT is all about saying yes, there are natural proofs.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. And what GCT is saying is that you need GCT because of the boundary. Okay. If there is no boundary, you don't need GCT because, in fact, algebraic proofs, in fact, are not even going to work. Then the whole thing is in trouble. But GCT program says that there is actually a natural proof. Okay. And that is the GCT. Actually, the natural proof, the terminology is not very natural. It causes a lot of confusion because GCT is very natural. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so now let me see. How much time do I have now?
20 minutes.
Okay, so let me give.
Sorry, this conjecture is still like, this is good. I mean, the permanent cannot be one of these hard polynomials because you believe in the other conjecture that because it's characterized by its symmetries, then
Yeah. And also, you see that all the lower bounds so far, whatever lower bound you prove for permanent, for the exact,
boundary.
you prove exactly the same thing. So everything is just going to go in step.
Okay, so this conjecture is more general.
Yeah.
Any polynomial characterized by symmetries,
Yeah.
the border complexities.
Yeah.
So just to get a sense of that, like for very specific examples, like say depth 3 powering circuits or diagonal circuits or something,
Hmm.
there's an equivalent notion of rank versus
Yeah, but there I'm not suggesting any such thing. In fact, this is not expected there because I didn't give the evidence. It really depends on the power of the determinant. Okay. I mean, only when you have determinant in the thing, obviously you would expect, only then these things start blowing up. Okay. But for example, if you take the diagonal depth 3 circuits, there is the border rank. I expect that would be polynomial in the rank or what. There won't be any blow up there. Okay, because for this nasty behavior to occur, you need determinant. I mean, and that is to be expected. VP versus VNP problem begins only when there is determinant in the model. Until then, it's not the problem you are addressing. But once there is a determinant in the model, there is boundary, and that is what GCT is all about, analyzing that bound. And I will tell you now the extent of the difficulty that is going to occur. So now let's prove. Let me state Noether's normalization lemma. NNL for this, okay, for this. So what it says that there exists a homogeneous linear map psi from cal y equal to CYM to C to the k for any k equal to the dimension of delta determinant M, okay, such that psi does not vanish on any non-zero point of delta hat determinant M inside Y, where this is the affine cone of delta det M inside the projective space. You see that delta det M is in the projective space, so corresponding to any non-zero point, you take the line through the origin which corresponding to that, okay, and so if you take the union of all those lines, that is the affine cone, okay. So what it says that there exists a homogeneous linear map psi from this to this which does not vanish on any non-zero point of the affine cone, okay. So this basically, this means that corresponding to psi, if you take the map from, so this is not everywhere defined, but if you take the map from the projective space, then this map is regular or well defined on the variety this, okay. Yes, so there exists such a homogeneous linear map that is Noether's normalization lemma for this variety. and we call such a psi, so we call such a psi, we call this a normalizing map. And now I will define the problem NNL for the problem NNL in this setting. The problem NNL is given delta det m in succinct specification. So we are not going to give by succinct specification means I'm just going to tell you this by just giving the circuit for determinant. Okay, I'm not going to actually write down the equations for this variety, because you see that the dimension of y is exponential in m, right? Because the number of monomials of degree m in m square variables. So if I try to write down the equations for this, it's going to take exponential space just to write down the equations. So there is no succinct. So in succinct specification meaning just specify the circuit for determinant. Okay, m by m determinant, m cross m determinant. So this is just of size polynomial in m. Okay, yes. So given this in a succinct specification, construct a normalizing map for any k greater than or equal to. This is greater than or equal to a normalizing map psi from py to p to the ck, where k is polynomial in m with a succinct specification. Okay, so what do I mean by succinct specification? Again, if I just specify this map as a matrix, by a matrix from here to here, just the dimension of this exponentially in m, so this is going to be exponential. So that's not going to help. So what is the succinct specification? So succinct specification. So given a rational m by m matrix B, let psi b be a map, okay, y to c, denote the evaluation map. Okay, so basically what does this evaluation map do? So it, given any py in cal y, it just maps it to p of b. Okay, just take the evaluation map, and given a set cal b of some set of matrices b1 to bk, okay, of rational m by m matrices, okay. Let psi b from y to ck denote the evaluation map p of cal y to psi beta 1 p okay. Yes. It's clear. So then definition, we call psi b a succinct normalizing map if 1 psi b is normalizing, yeah, it should be normalizing map. 2 k is polynomial in m, and 3 the total bit length of cal b is polynomial element. Okay, so succinct from the complexity theory point of view.
This is exactly K18.
Huh?
This is exactly K18.
Not PIT, because there is a border, okay? If there were no border, it would be PIT. The border. Huh? It's a PIT for the infinite semi-closed approximation. Yes, you would think of it that. Yes, infinite semi-closed approximation, not the regular PIT. Yeah. The problem NNL is given delta determinant M succinctly construct a succinct normalizing map. Okay? Yeah? This is the problem NNL. So you see that this is given succinctly. So the bit length of input, the input bit length is poly m, right? So all the running times would be in terms of m basically. Yes? So now the problem is that theorem, the current best unconditional bound, current best, okay, unconditional bound for NNL NNL for delta det m belongs to X space. Takes space exponential, workspace exponential in m and time double exponential in m. And why is it X space and not P space? Okay, because for PIT the bound is P space, right? I mean that is the difference. And why? Because of the border. Okay, so this, and it is X space because you see that finally, so this follows from Grobner basis theory. Grobner basis theory. And it takes X space because you use Grobner basis theory to find the equations of this variety. And since the dimension of that space is exponential in m, the number of variables in the equations would be exponential in m. And Grobner basis theory or any theory for solving systems of polynomial equations is going to take space that is exponential in the number of variables. Yeah, so it would be double X space and double exponential. Now, if Vp bar is equal to Vp, then there is actually no difference between PIT and this. Then NNL belongs to P space. Okay. Okay. So the point is, what is standing in the way? That Vp bar is not equal to Vp. So regardless of whether Vp bar is equal to Vp, getting NNL from X space to P space is a problem, because if Vp bar is not equal to Vp, then that is the problem. And if Vp bar is equal to Vp, you have to prove it. Okay, so you are not going to get it to X space to P space without proving Vp bar equal to Vp. But there is really no chance of Vp bar being equal to Vp because really there is a good evidence that.
So this is if and only?
No, not if and only. If.
No, so you can show it's in P space, right?
Yes. Yeah. If Vp bar equal to Vp.
No, but it's possible to prove that NNL is in P space regardless of Vp bar and Vp.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Okay, that is yeah. It's not if and only if.
No, okay.
Yeah. No. I mean, if it were if and only if, then that is the end of whatever GCT. Yeah, yeah, because the GCT program is because. Okay.
And because NNL is strongly related to PIT, like the fact that PIT can be done in randomized polynomial time, does that have any implications here?
No. Right now it is just in X space. You can't even get to P space. Okay. Because of this border issue. So
in the previous lecture you had said that if we can do black box PIT, then you can show that.
That is only for that kind of explicit variety, not for this. Okay. Here that doesn't have a border. That is one thing that is used in the proof, but that is a non-trivial result due to Hilbert and Mumford. Okay. Whereas here the border is the issue. Okay. So now with that, let me state the theorem is that.
Without the border?
Yeah, if it had no PIT, then you could use. Then you can just use your regular PIT. Okay.
There's
Yes. Yeah.
Why? And the issue of having a border is for what? What is the issue that having a border brings everything up to X space?
Because of the border, you can't use PIT now. Okay. Currently, because of the border, you can't use PIT.
Why not?
No, because there is a border. It is not PIT. It is PIT with respect to infinitesimally close approximation. You see, but that means basically you have to worry about the border. Okay.
I see.
Yeah. Okay. So the theorem is that if assuming GCT1 conjecture, so if the GCT1 conjecture for the hardness of the permanent, okay, where did I say this? Yes, not super polynomial, but I'm assuming 2 to the n to the epsilon. Yeah, if that is true conjecture, then NNL for this, NNL for this belongs to quasi P. Also actually quasi det whatever. Yeah, so the situation is as follows right now. So this is X space. This is X. This is exponential hierarchy. We have P space. We have PH and then P, and NNL is currently here. Okay. If that if permanent is hard, it will come from X space to P. It's a huge gap. So this gap, this is the current gap between X space where it is currently and where we believe it should be, assuming that the permanent is hard, okay, where it ought to be. Huh? Quasi P. No, assuming some other, you will get it in P also. So this gap is what we'll call the GCT chasm, because this is what the goal of GCT is, to cross this, okay. And this is really, and I would say that this chasm versus barriers, okay, so we have the natural proof process. There is a fundamental difference, because these barriers is actually, when you say that parity is hard in constant depth circuit, and that proof technique is not going to work. Now, it's not really a statement about the difficulty of parity. We all know parity is easy. It's really the limitation of that proof technique. Whereas this is not really about the technique. I mean, this chasm is not because of the Grobner basis, whatever, because that VP bar is, if it is different from VP, that boundary is not there because of the Grobner basis techniques or something. It is really the universal difficulty of the problem, nothing to do with the technique. So, in some sense, this is really the universal difficulty of the problem. And this is what this is what the goal of the GCT program is about, to actually cross this. But you can see the magnitude. So currently, theorem, assuming GRH and that delta determinant M has equations, has defining equations that can be computed in exponential time. I mean, of course, the defining, you can't compute the equations in better than exponential time because the number of variables is going to. Assuming this, it follows that NNL belongs to exponential hierarchy. This much can be shown. Okay, so you can bring it from here to here, assuming GRH and assuming, but both these are, of course, GRH everybody knows is very hard. And finding the equations, defining equations for this is also related to some long-standing problems in algebra. So both these assumptions are very hard. So the first challenging problem, because I was supposed to give open questions, concrete questions. Okay, so show that NNL is in exponential hierarchy, unconditionally, okay? And I would strongly urge the complexity theories here to try to show this. You would realize what you are dealing with. Until you try to show this and realize how difficult it is, one won't understand what makes VP versus VNP problems so hard. Because even this is a challenge. Going from here to here is out of question at this point. Okay, I mean just getting to the exponential hierarchy is a challenge. So please try to give this. Second is
Can you also give a reference for this?
yeah JCT5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, everything.
So how long is it, like this thick?
What? What? Okay. Is VP bar inside VN? Okay, is this in VNP? Okay. Right now we can't even show that VP bar is in VNP. Now, is it in VNP or not? So we have evidence that it is not in VP, but we don't have any really concrete evidence that it is not in VNP. So at this point, I will just keep it as an open question. I mean, depend, like if Tel Aviv weather is beautiful, so here I feel sunny, and so I feel that it is in, but in Chicago with the depressing weather, it is not. So it depends on where you are. But since I'm in Tel Aviv, I'm willing to admit the possibility that it may be, but even proving this is a challenge. Please try to prove this, okay? And it is shown in that work that if there is some very far-reaching generalization of the Hilbert-Mumford-Kempf criteria in invariant theory to non-closed orbits, then actually it would be. But whether such a generalization of that Hilbert-Mumford-Kempf exists, no one knows. It's a very challenging problem. So even getting it in VNP, if it is the case, is a challenge. And third, okay, so something which is doable, I believe. Okay, so show that NNL for this k to the r for left-right action of SLM cross SLM. Okay, for left-right action of SLM cross SLM is in P. Now this might be doable because KV is going to talk about this. There is a recent interesting result by Ivanios, Kiao, KV, and also Dirksen and Makam, which shows that actually that variety is explicit. Okay, so now instead of read once only oblivious algebraic branching problems, you will get some other class of things for which you have to kind of de-randomize that PIT. I think that would be very much maybe on the horizon, and people here might already have expertise for actually doing this. Okay, so go in this order, okay, and that, yeah, 1, 2, 3.
Is the order 1, 3, 2?
No, 3, 1, 2. That is my belief that first this, okay.
But 3 is already. Oh no, sorry, right.
Okay, go in that order. Yeah.
Is there any natural class that you believe that is closed under approximations?
Excuse me?
Is there any natural class, well, not VP apparently, but that is closed under taking approximations?
Infinite semi-closed approximation. Huh?
Okay, that's very easy.
Can you explain what the gap of
Under limits.
Under limits.
What is it?
V1's ADPs are closed.
Huh?
V1's ADPs are closed under limits.
What of VP is closed?
V1's limits.
I was just asking whether those natural classes that are closed are
Subclasses of VP.
any, subclasses or superclass. Whatever, just natural. So,
Oh, that I don't know. Yeah.
so VNP closure, for example, you believe it's not VNP.
VNP closure could be actually, it's the same thing.
That would prove
No, in fact, it is really this problem, but VNP closure again is a question. But okay, in the Tel Aviv optimistic weather, I think both things could be in VNP. Okay, because basically VP bar contains the conjecture is that VP bar contains some VNP intermediate problems because it's not going to be like permanent. So the things that are in VP bar and not in VP have to be VNP intermediate. Now there is a result by Burgesser which shows, like for example, in complexity theory we know that they are NP intermediate. What are they called? NP intermediate problems like factoring or etc. Okay, so those kinds of things are there inside VP bar, but VNP is already there. So VNP bar, we don't know whether it is in VNP or not, but that is also to be. If this is inside VNP, my guess would be that this would also be inside VNP, but we don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
What about formulas? If you take a VPE, say formulas, polynomial size formulas, and take the bar, is that in VNP? Is that known to be in VNP?
Because all the evidence that we give here in this paper, you start with determinant, okay? So you have to have determinant in the model, because starting with determinant you do, so with formula, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to make a conjecture unless I have a good evidence for it. And for formula, maybe, may not be, but it is definitely something worth wondering. It may be easier than, at least for this, okay? But I won't make any conjecture because I don't have any evidence for it. But it is worth, all kinds of bar operations should be studied now, okay? Because the bar is our problem, yes?
Can you expect things to change significantly if we move from VP to V quasi key?
No, that is all fine. Yeah, yeah. There is no, yeah.
Because yeah, it's like if you allow VQP, then formula is the same.
Yeah, actually. So I think the formula, because if you take quasi P, it's not going to be. Yeah, so yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Just getting a sense of bigger picture. So one thing we sort of believe that the determinant of complexity of the permanent and the DC bar of the permanent are within poly.
Yeah.
And the current evidence seems to suggest that whatever lower bound proof we have for any class, it also works for the bar of that.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
is there a need to look at this pessimistically at all? Because this just says that the bar is not really a problem.
Of course, bar is a problem, because so far the lower bound that you proved, okay, are where the boundary is not looking at you.
That's still fine, right? I mean, because we still expect DC bar of permanent to be much larger anyway.
No, that's also my question. I mean, it just says that there is hope. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, like,
What is it?
no, I'm just wondering. Okay, based on current evidence, every lower bound technique we have,
Yeah.
it also gives us.
That is what the
lower bound for VP bar.
yeah.
But we are anyway trying.
But so far you have been doing it without worrying about the border,
That's cool.
and that's not cool. That's the problem.
The reason it's cool is because we anyway expect the DC of permanent to be 2 to the n.
Yeah, that is true.
And DC of permanent bar is also 2 to the n.
Yeah.
So that's fine, right?
also, maybe I can say, explain what my intuition, maybe it's wrong, but I mean, we would like to do lower bounds based on easiness, right? That VP is too easy and, permanent is hard, and we formulate this and we find some polynomial that separates easy from hard. But what this conjecture says is that actually, if our techniques is algebraic, then it will also hold for the border. But the border is not easy.
Border is not.
But we are not trying to
No, but
characterize
no, I mean,
exactly what
just-
easy is.
No, but you will have to find equations, okay, satisfied by the border, which separate permanent from that, and finding those equations is very hard. This chasm is basically the difficulty of finding those equations, because if you could even get that equation, anything, okay, you will actually already put it in exponential hierarchy. That's already a problem. So it's really the border, as long as you are not trying to prove lower bounds that are super polynomial, or you are proving lower bounds in restricted models in which you can't compute the determinant, that border is not going to cause you any problems. That is why you think it's so cool. Because you haven't worked in a situation where there is heat, you see, that's the thing. Then you won't think it is cool. And I think what I'm saying is the border is the problem, really. Yeah.
Just, I mean, if you look at multilinear formulas, though, right, I mean, you get this rank bound, which is slightly less than exponential, or slightly less than maximum, which is not what you're saying. I mean, it's saying that like multilinear formulas, like if you look, the equations that you end up using are not just all easy things. I mean, you're getting like those equations also satisfy many hard things. It's not really what you're suggesting.
There's some to explain this problem.
Okay. Okay, so let me just give the implications for GCT and for complexity theory. Okay, implications for GCT and also CT. So the first, as I said, the border is the universal difficulty, which is what we have to understand now. Okay, and two, this also suggests that the obstructions in GCT that were defined in GCT2, some class of defined using only the orbit of the determinant won't work. And actually Christian is going to and this is an important result, okay, Christian's talk, and where this is actually shown that this is formally not the case for at least the simplest class of such obstructions which are defined using the vanishing of Kronecker coefficient. Now, since border is the problem and since the orbit, if you take any information that you compute just using the orbit, now you can kind of expect that that's not going to help because you're not actually addressing the real problem. And Christian talks, actually he's going to show that that is actually the case. So the two things, so what this is saying and what he's going to talk about are actually saying the same thing, that border is the problem. So which means, but that of course, the long-term GCT program is not, the viability of the long-term GCT program is not affected by these negative results because in GCT, one can define obstructions that depend on the border. So I won't go into that. But these obstructions are much harder than the ones which depend only on the orbit. So everything becomes much, much harder now. And that is actually inevitable because, given the magnitude of this chasm, there is not going to be any easy proof. And this difficulty, what I'm trying to say, is not a difficulty specific to GCT, it's really the difficulty of complexity theory. The border is really the difficulty of complexity theory. So which means that after this, basically the shortcut that was proposed in GCT is not going to work and you have to now take the long road, okay? And it's a long and arduous journey ahead because it's really what GCT program is all about is how to cross the chasm, which is really the definition of GCT, understanding the border. But understanding of the border would require a deep synthesis of algebraic geometry, representation theory, and complexity theory. And also extensive collaboration between these fields. And let me end my talk with the hope that these fields will now get together and do whatever is required to understand the border, okay? Because whether we like the border, whether we want to look at the border is looking at us. Okay, thank you very much.
Does this formula have any counterpart in Boolean convexity?
This has no, what? Boolean circuit? Well, it is, this is philosophy, and that everybody believes, and I think it is true, that Boolean circuit lower bounds are harder than arithmetic circuit. You can't prove this, okay? But for example, it is known that assuming GRH, the Boolean circuit lower bounds implies VP not equal to VNP conjecture, okay? So it means that this border is a problem even for Boolean modulo that working hypothesis of complexity theory, that arithmetic circuits are easier than Boolean complexity theory, okay? Huh?
The answer to your question is like, if you look at like degree bounds for polynomials and Greek representation, right, there are these like non-classical polynomial upper bounds. Right? It's sort of a similar thing that like, there's a difference between classical polynomials representing and non-classical, and it turns out there's better non-classical upper bounds. And it's sort of a similar kind of question there.
Yeah, any other?
Just look at this reverse problem over finite fields, for example. We still don't know how to do.
No, but the finite field is going to be harder than the closure of that finite field, okay? Because in finite field, you have to then worry about the Diophantine problems, okay, which is even harder, okay? So in the algebraically closed field, for example, all the lower bounds, even in the restricted models, if you just consider finite field, it's not going to simplify the proof. You always get a lower bound by showing it for algebraically closed thing. So if it is not going to help even in the restricted models, why is it going to help in the unrestricted model? So this border is actually a difficulty of complexity theory, not just arithmetic circuits, but assuming this hypothesis that Boolean arithmetic circuits are easier than Boolean circuits. This is really the difficulty that we have to now worry about. And understanding border is what GCT is all about, really. Yeah.
Okay. Let me just remind you that if you want